If they play dirty, don't get angry. Anger is the reaction they're waiting for, because the most dangerous manipulators don't look dangerous. They look calm, reasonable, cooperative. They'll smile while they shift the ground beneath you, then act confused when you lose balance. And if you're a good person, you're their favorite target, not because you're weak, because you're predictable. You believe in fairness. You explain yourself. You hesitate before pushing back. You expect decency to be mutual. They don't attack your strength. They attack your expectations. Machiavelli's real warning was never be ruthless. It was this: in a dirty environment, clean behavior becomes a map. What you're about to hear isn't motivation. It's awareness, the kind that makes people harder to read, harder to bait, and harder to move. By the end, one thing will be true. They won't stop playing dirty because they changed. They'll stop because dealing with you became expensive. And it starts with understanding why being good is often what exposes you first. The good person trap. Dirty players don't hunt weakness. They hunt predictable decency. This is the first illusion most intelligent, capable people fall into. If I'm fair, consistent, and reasonable, I'll be safe. That belief feels noble. It also makes you easy to study, because consistency, when observed by the wrong person, becomes a blueprint. Dirty players don't rush. They watch. They track how you respond to tension, how long you tolerate discomfort, how quickly you explain yourself, how often you choose harmony over position. They aren't judging your character. They're measuring your thresholds. And the moment those thresholds become visible, the game changes. This is why the people who get manipulated most are rarely incompetent. They're reliable. They show up the same way every time. They assume shared values. They expect decency to be mutual. That assumption is the opening. A good person believes rules are universal. A dirty player knows rules are conditional. So, instead of attacking you directly, they test you indirectly. A small delay, a subtle misrepresentation, a quiet shift of responsibility, a boundary crossed just enough to create confusion, not confrontation. These aren't accidents, they're probes. They're watching to see if you, correct, immediately smooth things over, give the benefit of the doubt, avoid making it awkward. Each polite response teaches them something. It tells them how far they can go without cost. It tells them whether you'll prioritize peace over leverage. It tells them whether you'll self-limit before they ever have to push. This is the danger of being readable. Kindness itself isn't the problem. Transparency is. When someone knows exactly how you behave under pressure, they no longer need to overpower you. They just wait. They let you assume decency. They let you explain. They let you hesitate. And while you're choosing the right response, they're choosing the effective one. Machiavelli understood this clearly. Morality without awareness doesn't protect you. It exposes you. Not because goodness is wrong, but because predictability removes flexibility. When someone knows how long you'll tolerate disrespect, how many chances you'll give, how uncomfortable silence makes you, how much you fear being misunderstood, they don't need to fight you. They can design situations where your own habits do the work. This is why dirty players escalate slowly. They don't shock the system. They condition it. By the time you realize something is off, the environment is already tilted, and any strong reaction now makes you look unreasonable. The solution isn't cruelty. It's strategic opacity. You don't need to change who you are internally. You need to stop advertising it externally. You don't owe consistency to people who haven't earned trust. You don't owe clarity to those collecting information. You don't owe predictability to anyone who benefits from your hesitation. When you stop being easy to read, leverage returns quietly. Comment this if it hit, "I don't advertise my limits," or comment, "I see the test now." Because once your pattern is clear, they don't confront you. They arrange situations where you can't win. They don't attack you, they position you. Most people think manipulation looks like aggression, raised voices, direct insults, open confrontation. That belief is comforting and wrong. Real manipulators don't attack you, they position you. They understand something most people miss. Whoever controls the environment controls the outcome. So instead of challenging you head-on, they design situations where any response works against you. They choose timing carefully. When you're tired, rushed, emotionally invested, not when you're calm and prepared. They choose context deliberately, in front of witnesses, in group settings, in public spaces, because perception matters more than truth. And then they choose contrast. They stay calm, polite, measured, while quietly pushing buttons they already know exist. Now look at the picture from the outside. You're reacting. They're composed. It doesn't matter what actually happened anymore. Observers don't analyze facts. They absorb energy. Calm looks reasonable. Emotion looks unstable. This is why dirty players rarely raise their voice. They let you do it for them. And the moment you defend yourself emotionally, the frame locks in. Because defense confirms something important, that you're inside their structure. You're responding to conditions you didn't design, explaining yourself inside a story you didn't write, trying to correct perception after it's already formed. Dirty players love this moment. They don't need to accuse you. Your urgency does that for them. They don't need to argue facts. Your tone becomes the evidence. This is the hidden danger of defending yourself in a rigged environment. Every explanation strengthens the frame that something needs explaining. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Power is rarely taken through force. It's taken through arrangement. Once a role is assigned, the difficult one, the emotional one, the problem, every move you make is filtered through that lens. Speak calmly, you're cold. Speak firmly, you're aggressive. Stay silent, you're guilty. The trap isn't the accusation, it's the stage. So how do you break positioning without fighting inside it? You stop performing, you slow down, you reduce output, you refuse to match the pace or tone they're baiting. When you don't deliver the expected reaction, contrast collapses. Without contrast, the environment loses power. Observers stop receiving cues. The narrative weakens. The pressure shifts back onto the person who designed the situation. This doesn't require confrontation. It requires composure. Positioning only works when someone reacts on cue. When you don't, the structure begins to show cracks. Because once you recognize positioning, the real question becomes, how do you break a rigged frame without fighting inside it? Controlled weakness. The art of being underestimated. Most people believe strength must be visible to be effective. They think authority comes from clarity, confidence, and proof. Machiavelli understood the opposite. Visible strength triggers defense. Hidden capacity triggers carelessness. When your competence is obvious, people adjust. They become guarded. They speak less. They protect angles you'll never see. But when others believe you lack awareness, options, or intent, something dangerous happens. They relax, and relaxed people reveal themselves. Controlled weakness is not incompetence. It is restraint. It's choosing not to correct every assumption, not to interrupt every miscalculation, not to expose understanding the moment it forms. This restraint creates a false sense of safety. People who think they're ahead start moving faster. They explain more. They repeat behaviors they think went unnoticed. And repetition is everything. Because repetition exposes strategy. Dirty players don't improvise forever. They follow patterns. They reuse tactics that work. They escalate in predictable ways once they believe resistance is low. When you immediately challenge or confront, you shut this process down. They adapt, they hide, they switch masks. But when you let assumptions live, patterns surface. This is where ego becomes the enemy. Ego wants recognition. It wants to prove intelligence. It wants to be seen as sharp, capable, unplayable. Power doesn't want credit. Power wants information. Every time you correct too early, you trade long-term leverage for short-term satisfaction. You win the moment and lose the position. Machiavelli advised selective display for this reason. Not constant strength, not constant restraint, variation. When people cannot model you accurately, they cannot plan against you. Controlled weakness also disrupts expectations. Most people anticipate resistance from strength. They don't anticipate patience from capability. So when you don't react the way they expect, confusion sets in. They start filling silence with explanation. They justify actions that didn't need justification. They reveal priorities they intended to keep hidden. What feels like passivity is actually collection. This requires discipline, because silence feels uncomfortable. Letting a wrong assumption stand feels dangerous. Watching someone move confidently while you remain still feels counterintuitive. But stillness here is not surrender. It's positioning. You're allowing the full shape of the other person to emerge before you decide how to act. Once intent is visible, options expand. You can respond precisely instead of emotionally. You can apply pressure where it actually matters. You can move when their position is already exposed. The most dangerous person in the room is not the one asserting dominance. It's the one whose full capacity remains unknown until the moment it's needed. But there is one habit that collapses this advantage instantly, and good people do it without thinking. They explain. The explanation trap. Most people explain themselves because they believe clarity creates safety. They think if intentions are understood, conflict dissolves. Machiavelli understood something colder. The moment you explain, authority shifts. Explanation moves you from decision maker to approval seeker. You're no longer acting from position. You're justifying yourself inside someone else's frame. And that frame is never neutral. Dirty players don't ask questions to understand. They ask questions to extract. They're listening for emotional language, inconsistencies, priorities you care about, fears of being misunderstood. Every explanation gives them material. Details are not protection. Details are handles. Once you offer reasoning, others feel entitled to evaluate it. They judge whether it's sufficient, logical, or fair. Now the discussion is no longer about outcome. It's about your reasoning. That's the trap. Reasoning can be debated. Intent can be reframed. Tone can be quoted out of context. What felt like transparency becomes leverage. This is why manipulators provoke explanations subtly. They don't accuse directly. They express confusion. They just want clarity. They ask why again and again. Not because they're lost, because they want you talking. Once you start explaining, stopping feels awkward. Silence suddenly feels suspicious. So you keep adding context. Each sentence tightens the net. Machiavelli warned against unnecessary honesty for this reason. Not because truth is dangerous, but because excess exposure removes ambiguity, and ambiguity protects power. Silence operates differently. Silence cannot be edited. It cannot be selectively quoted. It cannot be reframed easily. When you withhold commentary, you deny others the ability to twist narrative. What remains unsaid stays intact. More importantly, silence forces projection. In the absence of explanation, people fill gaps with their own assumptions. Those assumptions reveal more about them than anything you could say. Their discomfort rises. Their patience thins. Their attempts to regain control increase. You learn who needs reassurance, who needs dominance, who panics without feedback. This information is priceless. Explaining also exposes hierarchy. Those with authority don't narrate every move. They decide and allow others to adjust. Those without authority feel compelled to justify. They fear misinterpretation. They fear backlash. Dirty players recognize this instantly. The less you explain, the fewer surfaces exist for manipulation. When you speak only when necessary, each word carries weight. When you speak constantly, words lose force. This doesn't mean becoming evasive or deceptive. It means understanding that not every action requires commentary. Not every decision needs defense. Not every silence needs filling. Discernment replaces impulse. Machiavelli understood that power is preserved not by saying more, but by knowing when not to speak. Silence is powerful, but silence with timing is where control truly shifts. Pace control. Why delay creates pressure. Manipulation thrives on speed. Urgency is its oxygen. Dirty players push for fast reactions because speed bypasses judgment. When things move quickly, you don't choose, you react. And reactions leak information. They reveal emotion. They expose priorities. They show where pressure lands. This is why manipulators create artificial deadlines, sudden demands, and emotional spikes. They want you responding before you've stabilized. Machiavelli understood that whoever controls tempo controls perception. Fast actors appear decisive. Slow actors appear hesitant, at least on the surface. But beneath that illusion, something else is happening. Delay removes emotional tells. When you don't respond immediately, your face, tone, and urgency disappear from the exchange. There's nothing to read, nothing to calibrate against. Now the other side is operating blind, and blindness creates pressure. Without feedback, minds start racing. Was that too far? Did I miscalculate? Is something happening that I can't see? The absence of response becomes a force of its own. This is the reversal most people don't recognize. They believe pressure comes from confrontation. In reality, pressure often comes from uncertainty. When you wait, the dynamic flips. The person who spoke first begins performing. They follow up. They explain. They soften tone or escalate to regain control. Each move reveals intent. What was initially confident often becomes restless. What was calculated begins to wobble. This is narrative gravity at work. The one who responds last shapes interpretation. The one who waits defines the emotional center of the exchange. Machiavelli observed that authority is associated with unhurried behavior. Those with power are not rushed, they are waited on. When you delay, you implicitly signal options. You imply evaluation rather than defense. You communicate that you are not pressured by the moment. Dirty players hate this. Their tactics rely on tempo dominance. They need quick reactions to measure leverage. Delay denies them data. There's also a reputational effect. People who respond instantly appear reactive. People who choose timing appear measured. Observers feel this difference even if they can't articulate it. Control over pace reads as self-command. Many people fear delay because it feels passive. Manipulators reinforce this fear intentionally. They frame waiting as avoidance, weakness, or indecision. But Machiavelli saw patience differently. He saw it as positional superiority. Waiting doesn't mean inaction, it means information gathering. It allows emotion to settle. It allows patterns to surface. It allows you to respond with precision instead of impulse. And once the other side starts overextending to fill silence, leverage shifts quietly. You're no longer reacting inside their timeline. They're adjusting inside yours. This is where most people sabotage themselves. They rush to be fair. They hurry to clarify. They respond to restore balance. And in doing so, they give tempo back. But fairness has no power in a game where only one side respects the clock. And this is where most people sabotage themselves, by clinging to fairness in an unfair game. Why fairness becomes a liability. Fairness feels safe. It promises balance. It offers moral comfort. It reassures you that if you act correctly, things will resolve themselves. Machiavelli understood the danger in that belief. Fairness only works when rules are shared. The moment one side steps outside those rules while the other remains loyal to them, fairness stops being a virtue and becomes a liability. Dirty players recognize this imbalance immediately. They know you don't want to overreact. They know you fear being seen as excessive, unreasonable, or unjust. They count on your hesitation. While you calculate what's appropriate, they calculate what's effective. This is how advantage shifts quietly. Dirty players rarely make one large move. They escalate gradually. A small disrespect, a subtle boundary breach, a slight shift of responsibility. Each move is designed to be just minor enough that responding strongly feels too much. And because you value fairness, you absorb it. You explain. You excuse. You give another chance. What you're really doing is teaching them that violations are inexpensive. Machiavelli observed that justice without consequence is symbolic. It communicates values, but it doesn't alter behavior. Dirty players are unmoved by values. They respond only to cost. When behavior carries no price, it repeats. When imbalance produces comfort, it deepens. This is why fairness often delays action. You pause to consider what's right. They act on what works. That delay is not neutral. It transfers momentum. By the time you decide fairness has failed, the environment has already shifted. There is also a psychological reward tied to fairness. It allows people to feel morally superior while losing position. This illusion traps intelligent people more than anyone else. They mistake restraint for strength. They mistake intention for impact. Machiavelli warned against this confusion. Power does not respond to how just you feel. It responds to outcomes. This is where accuracy replaces fairness. Accuracy is not cruelty. It is proportion. It responds to behavior as it exists, not as it should. It applies consequence without drama. It corrects imbalance without apology. Dirty players often accuse others of being unfair when control is threatened. This accusation is strategic. It triggers guilt. It pressures retreat. It attempts to pull you back into hesitation. The moment you begin defending your fairness, leverage is already shifting away from you. Accuracy doesn't argue. It acts. And once consequences appear consistently, behavior adjusts quickly. Respect does not follow explanation. It follows enforcement. Machiavelli did not dismiss justice. He contextualized it. Without power, justice becomes decoration. With power, it becomes structure. When you release the need to appear fair to those acting in bad faith, clarity returns. Decisions simplify. Boundaries solidify. And when reactions and ethics no longer work on you, manipulators change tactics. They stop testing your behavior and go after something deeper, your sense of who you are. Identity warfare, the final pressure point. When manipulators can no longer control your reactions, when urgency stops working, when fairness no longer restrains you, they go after the deepest leverage point you have, your identity. This is the final pressure point because once identity destabilizes, resistance collapses without force. The attack rarely looks aggressive. It arrives as commentary. You've changed. You're not like this. This isn't who you are. I thought you were better than that. This is not feedback. It's destabilization. The goal isn't to correct your behavior. It's to make you doubt your internal compass. Once doubt enters, everything slows. You hesitate before enforcing boundaries. You second-guess decisions that were clear moments ago. You start defending who you are instead of holding your position. That hesitation is the opening. Machiavelli understood that the strongest rulers did not fall from attack. They fell when internal clarity fractured. Once identity became unstable, decisions became inconsistent. Inconsistency invited challenge. Challenge invited collapse. The same principle applies at a personal level. Self-doubt weakens boundaries faster than force ever could. Dirty players understand this instinctively. Instead of arguing facts, they question character. Instead of challenging actions, they challenge self-image. Why? Because most people anchor identity socially. They rely on being seen as reasonable. They need to feel understood. They want confirmation that they're still good. Manipulators exploit this dependency. The moment you need agreement to feel legitimate, control shifts outward. Machiavelli warned against this long before modern psychology gave it a name. Identity must be anchored privately, not socially. When values are self-defined, external commentary loses power. People may disapprove, but doubt doesn't take root. Pressure no longer redirects behavior. This doesn't mean rigidity. Growth requires change, but there is a difference between chosen evolution and confusion induced by pressure. Manipulators frame your growth as deviation. They suggest decline. They imply loss of authenticity. When you accept their framing, you regress to regain approval. When you reject it, something changes. You stop explaining your evolution. You stop defending alignment. You act from internal agreement, not external reassurance. This is where the final state forms. You become unreadable because reactions are no longer automatic. Selective because access is no longer guaranteed expensive, because engagement carries cost. At this stage, dirty players lose interest, not because they became moral, but because interaction stopped paying. Manipulation requires access. Access requires emotional leverage, and emotional leverage disappears when identity is internally anchored. This is the Machiavellian end state, not domination, not intimidation, self-command. When your internal state can't be destabilized, external tactics lose relevance. Comment, "I don't outsource my identity," or comment, "Access is earned." If this series changed how you see people, don't treat it as entertainment. Subscribe, because the next videos go deeper into power, psychology, and mental control. Remember this: you don't become powerful by fighting dirty, you become powerful by becoming untouchable.